Not too much. Well, you heard it there. We're all ready to enjoy ourselves here. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today podcast, a sports ethos presentation hosted by yours truly, Aaron Bruski, and FSWA Hall of Famer Steve Dr. A. Alexander. It's Tuesday, or so the legend goes, and we have plenty of fantasy breakdowns to talk about, looking back in time at last season. We're going to take another look at rookies. We did that yesterday with the great Rick Kamala. Today, it's the two of us. And we'll get deep into all of that. And then after that, we'll talk some Eastern Conference playoffs. And before we do all of that, let's say hello to Bet Online. Hi, Bet Online. You are the world's most trusted betting platform and the number one source for all things sports betting. Baseball season's in full swing, and we're into the home stretch for NBA. And along with the NHL playoffs, there's even more ways to stay in the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, live in-game betting while the games are being played. Did I not mention that they have the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB, NHL, and UFC? Yes, that's the way that the read was written. BetOnline remains the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. And in between the games, head on over to BetOnline's casino, and you can just bet the crap out of all of their top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. Woo-wee! BetOnline. All right. Doc, we're going to be talking some rookies. How are you, sir?
You know what? I'm great.
You are great.
How are you?
Oh, I'm smarting from the pregame discussion here, where we were talking about the Men of Sports Ethos calendar that will never go out. But other than that, I'm doing fine myself. I thought our conversation yesterday was riveting, and actually, I'm being a little facetious, but maybe should be a little less facetious, because a lot of those rookies that we talked about yesterday, I think will be kind of compelling next season. We were talking about Zach Edey, Alex Sarr, Khalil Ware, Donovan Clingan, Keyshawn George. Those guys, I think, next season are going to be the spicy meatballs of drafts. And then you've got even more. So while this rookie class didn't really rise to the threshold of exciting that we've seen just last year with Victor Wembanyama, of course, but I think there's some players here, even if the end of season ranks and the experience wasn't as great as we would have hoped for. And actually, our first rookie that we're going to talk about here today really does fit the bill of that description. It's Bub Carrington. Like a lot of these other rookies, they were on the tips of our tongue all season long. We would make the move to go get him, and then they would disappoint us, or maybe the team didn't do what we wanted the team to do. And Bub Carrington was right there. I think all sorts of folks knew about Bub Carrington from start to finish. We would all take our turn adding Carrington, and then even when the going was good, it wasn't quite as exciting and productive as we would have hoped. He was an undrafted player for the most part in most standard leagues, and finished with a per game rank of 196 in 8 cat leagues. 9 cat leagues, not quite as favorable, obviously. But what are your thoughts about old Bub Carrington?
Well, he was not undrafted in all of my leagues because I was drafting Bub Carrington more than I should have been at times last season. And, it was always touch and go with Bub. Like, oh, he's right there, but he's not getting it done. And I feel like he's one of those guys that was dropped in a lot of leagues and then picked up and then dropped and then picked up and then dropped. But at the end of the season, I think we finally got to see what we thought we were going to see a lot more from Bub this year. And that was pulling up his game log here. I feel like, I went the wrong way. I feel like he kind of went off at the end of the year. So April, he scored in double figures in every one of his April games. He had 32 points, 9 boards, 7 assists, and 1. For the month of April, he averaged almost 18 points, 5 boards, 7 assists. No steals, no blocks, but 3 triples. So if you could get 15 points, 5 boards, and 6 assists with 2 threes out of Bub next year, I would be thrilled with that. The problem is he plays for Washington. We just don't know what they're going to do. They're always a disaster, like every single year. But, Bub is the future in Washington. So I'm thinking he's going to be on a lot of sleeper lists going into next year. and he's probably going to be on a bunch of my teams again.
Yeah, I mean, the price might be right because I think people did experience collectively, even with that last push where those popcorn stats of points, threes, probably points, rebounds, and assists, they were there for folks. It's the other stuff that I think will dampen the enthusiasm, percentages and defensive stats being half of the stats of a head-to-head contest. I think folks will maybe not go out over their skis to go get Bub. I think the thing I'll be watching for is, can he get more confidence from deep? Can he become a better shooter from deep? Because if he can, I think things will open up for him and he'll be a good player. If he can't, I think it might just be some mediocrity for him over the long term. Let's swing this over to Justin Edwards. A very productive player compared to some of the other names on this list on the season. Undrafted, really, folks didn't even play Justin Edwards that much. Like, I mean, he had a couple of months of relevancy and it was good, but not great. But he just kept chunking his way along as far as production goes, finished as the 216th best player per game. And the last 2 months of the season, he was 153. And this was amidst all of the weird stuff going on in Philly. And there was all sorts of stuff, even with him being kind of in and out of the rotation a little bit, and a game, I should say, being rested down the stretch. So what are your thoughts about him? Are you going to be thinking he's a draft worthy guy, or is he just something else?
I don't know. He had a good month of March, right? He's 14 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, a steal, 2 threes. That's as good as it's going to get with him, I think. I liked him as a pickup this year, and I was fired up to get him in some leagues. And then once he started to cool off or got injured, you just dropped him and moved on. So it wasn't that big of a deal. I don't know what his role is going to be. Philly is such a mess, man. Philly needs to tear it down and start over. But you've got Kelly Oubre, you've got Gershon Yabusele, you got Ricky Council, you got Lonnie Walker, you've got Paul George. So I just don't. I think a lot of Edwards' success was tied into the fact that Paul George was either in or out this year. I don't think I'm targeting Justin Edwards in drafts next year.
No, I don't think he will be unless they really tear it down in Philly. I don't think he'll be a name that's being discussed, but he's a good name to file away. I would like to have seen a little bit better defensive stat production out of him. It was really good early on, and then it sort of leveled out. 1 steal and 0.4 blocks in 26.3 minutes per game. I would like to see one or both of those numbers a lot higher in that many minutes, and maybe it was due to the shuffling of the lineups and not being able to really kind of have other good defenders around him and get better stats that way. But a name to file away for sure. This next name you don't need to file away because it's on the tip of everybody's tongue. It's Stephon Castle. Definitely drafted last season. Folks were hoping to catch lightning in a bottle with that number 4 overall pick. And it was, as far as ranks go, a really tough year for him. Same stuff that we've been talking about with a lot of these guys, bad percentages, low defensive stats. He had all of that going on and finished as the 218th, as I mentioned, ranked guy. And then the last 2 months of the season where they really kind of cleared out and gave him the ball, 157 over the last 2 months of the season. So how you feeling about the whole Stephon Castle experience, and where are you looking at him next year?
He shot 43% his rookie season. For a guard who played 81 games, I don't hate that. That's not going to ruin your team. 72% from the free throw line. Yeah, that's not great. Could be better, but it's, again, not something that's going to destroy your team. 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 15 points. Only 1 3. I'd like to see him get up to 2 threes next year. But to me, he was the rookie of the year, even though it's not a great season, but it wasn't a great season for rookies either. So I know you and Mark like Jalen Wells and maybe somebody else instead of Castle. But I like Stephon Castle. I think he's rookie of the year. I don't know that I'm going to be fighting people for him next year. He's not going to be on my list of like must draft guys.
It's going to be real hard with De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama trying to figure out their games. And Castle will be at minimum a third fiddle in terms of trying to figure out where Stephon Castle fits in that scheme. So I think 72.4% is not that bad. For what you might classify as a bad shooter or bad percentages guy. It wouldn't be shocking to see that get up to like 75 next year. And if he could keep every year just building at it, and eventually might kind of be a high 70s. And we've seen guys that have actually been able to kind of get up over the 78, 79 mark just with the practice that the NBA brings.
Brew,
I think he's got a lot of talent. Go ahead.
How much does his value next season depend on Chris Paul? Like if Chris Paul's gone, are you more into Stephon Castle, or does it not matter?
It's close to not mattering because Chris Paul has sort of he's starting to stand around and not do much out there. And so with that being said, I think that the minutes will kind of filter around the big three that I just mentioned. And then Chris Paul will do whatever Chris Paul does if he's around. And I don't think they're going to want to keep Chris Paul around. I mean, I could be wrong. If nobody else really wants Chris Paul and they want to have a veteran voice there in the locker room, that might be a place where he can hang around. But I think they're ready to turn the page and give the keys to Stephon Castle. Turn the key, turn the page. Oh, my goodness. All right. So let's move this out of the Stephon Castle discussion. Let's talk about Isaiah Collier. This guy really, I think there was some heat on him in like deep dynasty leagues heading into the season. I know that at the Sports Ethos Fantasy Pass, the guys that break down college like Mark Camaro and others, they were really high on Collier, and I was able to snag him in some dynasty drafts based on solely that. I didn't know a thing about him. I just knew his name was Isaiah Collier, or as I used to call him, Collier. And then I was just like, sweet, I got a good player in these dynasty leagues. So he's unknown and then undrafted, obviously, in fantasy leagues, finished as 228, and the last 2 months of the season he was 172. How did you feel about his last kick there?
I think Mark may have called him Collier at one time too. And at that point I was like, well, am I the one that's wrong? Is it Collier and not Collier? I don't know. It got me a little concerned. Collier's last kick I thought was pretty good. He had his last game of the year before he got hurt was April 6th. He had 17 points, 12 dimes. He had 22 points and 10 dimes on April 2nd. His assists were awesome at the end. 7, 7, 5, 4, 6, 5, 6, 8, 6. Like a lot of assists, man. Like the numbers look pretty good. I really like him. I think future is very bright for Isaiah Collier. He's only 20 years old. He's got a hamstring problem. I think that he'll be fine going into next year. I just don't know how well him and Keontae George can coexist, but we need to get Colin Sexton out of the way and let Keontae and Isaiah Collier just play.
I was actually encouraged by some of the stuff I saw out of Keontae George with him being off the ball a little bit toward the end of the season. That said, I guess my concerns about Collier is that I almost did it again. Is just athleticism. Like I think he's got enough of it right now when he's got those young, fresh legs, and he's going to put on weight. Obviously, that'll help in the strength department. But will he still then be able to be as explosive to get the step he needs to get to make it all happen at the NBA level? The good news is those assist numbers reflect that he's been able to do that. But just watching him play, I kind of always thought, he's just on the edge of not being able to accomplish what he wants to accomplish out there. And I think he needs more speed and more burst and athleticism rather than strength that normally comes with being in the league a little bit. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with Collier. Now, would you like Collier or Castle on day one of a fantasy draft drafted today?
I would take Isaiah Collier.
Interesting. Very interesting. It's tough sledding either way. Next name on the list, Kyle Filipowski, obviously undrafted. The Kyle Filipowski stuff got real interesting in I don't know, I want to say December or something. You just kept noticing this guy that was producing and you're like, well, who the hell? First of all, who the hell is Kyle Filipowski? I'm sure there's college heads out there who know who Kyle Filipowski was, but I'm sitting there. Who the hell is this guy that keeps producing in the box score? And then you take in a game and it's like, oh, damn, Kyle Filipowski can play. And then he was a hot pickup. He was a guy that we were able to get on a bunch of our teams here at Sports Ethos. And the rest is history. So how do you feel about Filipowski after the season he had?
I like him a lot, man. He was a great pickup if you picked him up. He didn't do anything in November or December. In January, sort of started popping his head up just a little bit. He had a big 17 rebound game that I think got people's attention. You're like, oh, Filipowski, who's that? He went to Duke. I mean, we really should know who he is, but whatever.
I don't know.
I don't watch college basketball.
I don't even know who Duke is.
Go on. But then February came and he was a little better, and then March is when he blew up, Brew. 15 points, 8 boards, a block, and 2 threes in March. So that was exciting. And if you jumped on him in February and then he came through in March, you had to be pretty happy about that. The problem is it was actually a steal. He doesn't block shots for being a big guy really much at all, except in April he had 1.7 blocks. But I think on the season he averaged like 0.3, 0.4.
If your Roto GM's got in his last 3 games, 20 points, 11 boards, 3 assists, 1.3 steals, 2 blocks, 55% shooting. It was amazing.
He was a silly season hero. Him and Bub both.
I don't know if I've done my full accounting on who the silliest season hero or the biggest hero of the silliest season was, but Kyle's got to be at the top.
He's one of them. Can you hear the baby crying?
Oh, it's a baby. Oh, that's so nice. Everybody loves a baby except for the people who don't.
I love Filipowski. Where's he going to be drafted next year, Brew? Where are you going to take him?
Honestly, I think if there's the slightest bit of confusion out there, I think people will be off Filipowski for the most part. If you got other players that are there, there'll be a lot about Utah and what's going to go on with them. Who knows if they get Cooper Flagg? They got a lot of draft picks that they can kind of throw around a little bit here, and it's going to just be interesting to see what do they do. How do they decide to kind of unfurl their veteran players, the Lauri Markkanen of the world? Are they going to get rid of Walker Kessler? They're going to talk about that forever. What exactly is Utah? Once that's figured out, I think there'll be a home for a Kyle Filipowski, but I don't think people are going to get out over their skis on Kyle Filipowski at all. It'll be a very interesting one, no matter what. And with that,
there's a lot of interesting things going on in Utah. There's Isaiah Collier, there's Bryce Sensabaugh, there's Philip, there's Walker Kessler, there's Keontae George,
Taylor Hendricks.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool, fun stuff going on there, but there's also this really annoying stuff like Colin Sexton and Svi Mikhailiuk and freaking Lauri Markkanen. And it's just hard John Collins, what's going to happen there? So we need to get some of the question marks answered before we really know where we're going to target Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, Filipowski, guys like that. So I'm with you. We kind of need to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Also, just very excited about very respectful of the season that Filipowski had. The next player up on this list here is as Doc goes, and Doc's going to go rock the baby to sleep, and that's going to be all good and fun. Zachary Reese-Shea. Reese-Shea, a big name, obviously number 1 overall pick. He got drafted towards the ends of drafts and was more or less not valuable, I don't think. I mean, there was stretches that he was good. There's a lot to this conversation. I don't know if we'll touch all of it, and maybe it's just to be determined, a lot of it. But he's got a lot of talent, this guy. But it didn't translate, and maybe I might not never translate in fantasy leagues. 246 on the year per game in 8 cat formats, and as things opened up a little bit as the season dwindled down at the end, 178 over the last 2 months. So those 2 months, there were some pretty big pop games in there. But I guess overall, as an Atlanta guy, what's your read on this one?
There were pop games, but there were a lot of duds in between the pops. So he had that 38-point, 15 or 20 shooting game on April 10th. He had 36 points and 5 threes on March 30th. He had a decent March, but most of my recollection of Zachary Reese-Shea was 7 just mediocre games that if he was in your lineup, didn't hurt you, but it didn't really help you. And then he'd have a huge pop game, and then he'd have a bad shooting night and not do anything, and then he'd go on another mediocre string, and then he'd have a big pop game 2 weeks later. So I think in the end, he really didn't help you if you had him on your teams.
I think his issue is that while he can shoot, he's not like a shooter. And if he's not going to get you a bunch of defensive stats, if that's your composition, if you're not, quote, a shooter, that just means you're going to be bad and you're going to have bad games. And especially as a rookie, the promising stuff is it really feels like he's got a good craftiness with the ball in his hand and some finishing skills that might just sort of like hold him over until he can figure out the shooting piece. And that's if you have great handles and if you can finish and you can shoot, the game really opens up. So I kind of look at him as a guy that's maybe got some hidden value down, say 2 years from now, 1 year from now. It'll definitely be better next year than this year. It's just the combo. You can't be, low defensive stats, iffy percentages. He gets to the line a decent amount 2 times a game and 71% from the line. So especially in a roto setting, that's driving that value down. But, and when you're in head to head and you got to kind of like, oh, well, you don't get me assists. You don't get me steals and blocks. Oh, by the way, your percentages are bad. Well, that's 4 or 5 categories right there that you're a drag in. And that's not great. Let's flip this discussion to a guy that in the early part of the season, I probably spent way too much time talking about, Jonathan Mobo, who at the end of the season became a triple-double guy. Like, I guess, yeah, sure. Why not? Mobo undrafted, obviously, 254 on the season, but in the last 2 months of the season, he was 150. So, how much stock do you put in that? Like, any? Some?
Well, getting Kelly Olynyk out of Toronto helped Mobo. Having Jakob Poeltl play every other game helped Mobo. Having Scotty Barnes being weird all year helped Mobo. The fact that Ochai Agbaji is not very good helped Mobo. So there's a lot.
Barnes and him are good friends, by the way. Helps.
There's
Mobo.
A lot going on there. And I don't really know much about Mobo. I didn't watch Toronto play very much, and I didn't see a lot of Mobo games. And every time I hear Jonathan Mobo's name, all I think about is Aaron Bruski, because you were just like, Mobo, dude, if things fall in place for Mobo, he's gonna be awesome. And He finished up strong. He was another silly
He
season,
was a top 30 guy in his last
silly
3 games.
season guy.
Yeah.
So we need to see, sort of like Utah. We need to see what Toronto is going to have ready to go for next year.
How about this for a Mobo last 3 games stat line? 11 points, 11 boards, 10 assists, almost 3 steals, 32% shooting from the field. Like, it's such a weird player. And so basically, just to kind of rewind the clock, he came on the scene and it's this physical presence that you don't really see very often. It's kind of like when you see these like apex defenders like Gary Payton Jr. You're like, that guy is built like a linebacker, but he's quicker than all the guards. Like that's going to be very good. And with Mobo, it was like, he's bigger than everybody, he's faster than everybody, he's got footwork, yada, yada, yada. What we would find is he's kind of a big man with guard skills that's not big enough to do anything on his own. And he just kind of hid from the basketball after a couple good games and was never good at all in fantasy leagues. But whatever that like playmaking guard play out of a big man, grab the rebound and go kind of stuff, he's got that in him. He just hides from stats, at least until the end of the season. So I think my final take on Mobo is until he shows that he can be about the stats, he's kind of off limits no matter what, even if he gets like a big opportunity. If they go, Mobo's going to be a 25-minute per game guy for us this year. Still like, okay, well, care about stats, or are you just going to like box out so somebody else can get the rebound and you're going to never take a chance and get a steal or a block? Jonathan Mobo, everybody. But it was fun. It was fun.
The final 7 games of the year, he averaged 10 points, 9 boards, 6 assists, a block, a steal and a half, and shot 86% from the free throw line. So
it was idealized.
There's a lot to look at there. Like he's got the game. He's got a fantasy friendly game. Are they going to use him like they use Chris Bosh for 10 years in Toronto and not give him enough, never let him get going? Or are they going to turn to Mobo and let him play? If they're going to let him play, he's going to be a good fantasy player.
That's more optimistic than I am. So you're the new resident Jonathan Mobo fan here at Sports Ethos. But I look, if they cultivate this the right way, and because he's got a trick, his handle's funny. It's like if he's at full speed, he's got a good handle. If he's just dribbling by himself, he'll probably dribble it off his foot. If he can get those pieces figured out and actually use his physicality the way he did in the last part of the season, we'll be talking about him next year. I don't know how this will break. I don't know what Toronto's doing. I mean, they added Brandon Ingram, for Christ's sake. Let's talk about Matas Buselis. This guy was sort of in the hype machine a little bit. Had a good summer league. Had some really wow plays in summer league. Really looks like a guy that might yam on people, and he was in the dunk contest. But then I thought his game was kind of surprisingly soft toward like not the very end, because I think at the very end they unleashed him and he was pretty good. Last 2 months of the season, he was a 118 8-cat per game rank, and a lot of the bad games are in that. Toward the end, I think he picked it up a little bit, mostly undrafted. But how do you feel about him after seeing that last 2 months of the season?
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty good in March and April. The problem is a lot of us were waiting for that November, December, January, and February. Just never really came. I was hyping him up before the dunk contest. His dunk contest performance was pathetic. Like, it was bad. As bad as
I didn't watch. What did he do?
He missed dunks, and when he made them, they weren't. I don't know. It just was bad. Because I really thought he had a chance to win the dunk contest. He didn't really compete in it. But I think I'm gonna go down with the Buzelis ship, I'm afraid, because I was on him last year. I'm gonna probably be on him this year because I like his skill set. He's tall, he can shoot threes, he can rebound, he can dunk, he can score.
Look, I think he might have a chance at ball handling. I think he might have a chance at ball handling. Like,
I mean, he's 6'10".
he
So
seems like he's okay enough with the handles right now, and he's so light, like he's very thin. And I mean, that to me screams potential playmaker, but I don't want to get over my skis with that.
you might be. I mean, Magic Johnson was pretty tall. He was a good point guard. So
Did you just
uh,
compare him to Magic Johnson? Oh
I
my
think
God.
Matas Buzelis is better than Magic Johnson ever was, obviously.
I'm going
But
to
no,
call Rick right now.
I actually like Buzelis, and I think I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. But again, it depends on the role, man, because Pat Williams has been in Chicago forever, and we're still waiting for Pat Williams to come along,
Mm-mm.
and I don't
That
think it's ever going to happen. And that ship has sailed. So, 5 years from now, are we going to be sitting here like, well, it just never happened for Buzelis? That's entirely possible, but I think I have a lot more faith in Buzelis than I ever did in Pat Williams. So I'll probably be drafting him late again next year and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Pat Williams, it's like it's almost it's probably worse than we know, just with like the stories that are coming out, almost of the vein of like, do you like basketball, man? Or have things gone so poorly that it's just like not good? At any rate, that sounds very dreary. Let's talk about somebody who may or may not be the rookie of the year, Jalen Wells. He was undrafted, and then boom, hey, you get a lot of minutes, kid. And then it turned out, for my money, I think the reason why Memphis is getting throttled in the playoffs is he was so important to them, just defensively and stability wise. They just couldn't compete against the Thunder, and that's kind of where we're at with him now. Fantasy wise, totally mixed bag. Like 273 on the season. It was worse actually during the last 2 months of the season. So he got a ton of minutes, but fantasy value wise, just really low. So how do you feel about Jalen Wells? And will you be looking at him next season?
I'm not a Jalen Wells guy, and you and Mark, especially Mark Conroe. I remember him, or Conroe Camaro. He was arguing with me. He's like,
That Mark.
Jalen Wells should be the rookie of the year. And I was like, I just don't see it, man. 10 points, 3 boards.
It was crazy. You guys had crazy look tries.
Less than 2 assists, 0.5 steals, 0.1 blocks, 1.7 threes. The percentage, 42 point. Castle shoots it better than Jalen Wells does. I don't know. I like my fantasy players to score points. And I know it's just one category. It's not all about scoring, but it's so many single digit scoring games for Wells. And I just feel like you fall behind when you've got that guy on your team. I'm not feeling him, but I know you probably feel a little differently.
No, actually, I mean, there was times where he was probably serviceable, but not in roto settings where I make my money. Like I'm more wondering, can he like somehow turn a page and just be in a different system, perhaps? Like, how much of it was defensive system that kept the defensive stats so low? It's not like he's a bad defender. He's known for his defense, and sometimes he really took some tough assignments and did so well with them. It's like, why can't you just get a steal every once in a while? Was that all scheme or what? And then is there any other elements that he can add to his game that will make him more dangerous? At least he's got my interest to think that maybe he could be a top 100 guy at some point in time in his career. We won't have a problem with the interest in this next player here, Adem Bona. This guy, first of all, undrafted in fantasy drafts, and that's fine. That's understandable, rookie. And but Philly did invest a high-ish pick in him, and so Embiid goes down, and Drummond goes down, and the whole team goes down, and then here comes Adem Bona, and he was absolutely. We were talking about silly season heroes, or who was the best silly season guy. I think it was Bona, like that. It was just sort of sitting there. And I know that in competitive ass high stakes settings, like people didn't move on it, and we had him everywhere. And it was such a difference maker to see this guy going out there, multiple defensive stats every night, great field goal percentage, double stuff going on. He started scoring at a high rate down the stretch. So how much of this do you think is sustainable heading into next season?
Well, like you said, Gershon, Yabu kind of faded away as the season went on. Like there were times we had really high hopes on Yabu, and then he never really came through. And then Embiid was out for most of the season, and Andre Drummond fizzled and was not reliable, and he was out at the end of the year. And it left Adem Bona in position to go off. And dude, you're right. He was the silly season hero, probably 32 minutes, 15.4 points, 8.4 boards, 2.3 steals, or 2.3 blocks, and 1.1 steals in April alone. And he was also pretty good in March. Not that good, but he had a solid March as well. So, dude, I wonder about the future of Joel Embiid. Like, is his career over?
Look,
I don't think it's over. I think he's going to come back and try it one more time. But if it doesn't go well, man, I really wonder.
My read is he had the juice, right? Like Embiid had the juice for let's say last season, like heading into the Olympics. Like he was able to call his shot. He was able to say, I want to play in the Olympics and I want to do it my way. And my way just happens to be dumb. And I'm going to do it anyway. And that was also the way that they handled injuries the 2 years prior. You'd see the biggest injury risk in the league, do something crazy to his knee. And he's like, I'm going to keep playing or whatever he would do. And then this. And I think at this point in time, when they all collectively knew and then realized, like, yeah, this thing's not getting better any conventional way. I read up on the background of Lonzo Ball's knee surgery like 2 months ago, and I don't really remember the specifics. But what I remember about it was like, I mean, I think they had the guy whose knee or whatever, like they borrowed from this other guy's body. They had him like to a game and kind of celebrated him. What Lonzo Ball did with his knee issue, I just came away from, I think it was Ramona Shelburne on the reporting, came away from thinking, well, damn, that's some futuristic stuff. And that seemed like a long shot, but it worked, sort of. So I think Joel Embiid's doing that this offseason. But the problem is I don't think it's going to work for him. Lonzo Ball's like an extremely high-level athlete that, keeps himself in good shape and probably did every little thing he needed to do. Joel Embiid's never done any of that stuff. He's always been too heavy. He's always been out of shape. He's always not taking his knees seriously, as mentioned. And now he's got to do that at this stage of his career and make that work. So he's gonna go for the Hail Mary. Yeah, just looking at the private chat. Ball, several procedures and a cartilage transplant. That's what it was. That he did in March 2023. So I mean, literally, when you have the cartilage issues, it just stopped growing, and it sounds like they just found cartilage from another person. I guess that's something we probably have looked at for years and years, but now it's good enough to work. So Embiid's got a lot of things he's got to do. So to your question about Philly, I think that he's done. So does that make you heading into this season? Do you think Bona's got a chance?
I'm kind of fired up about Bona, man. I want to. Bona's going to be on my list next year.
He's on the list. Look at that.
He's on the list.
All right. Okay, guys, that was a deep dive on all of the rookies. I'm sure there's a couple rookies that we missed out there somewhere. Send them to us if you want us to talk about them. We will. We're going to go into the Eastern Conference playoffs and some betting angles for today, Tuesday. Before we do, we have WNBA leagues, folks. Hit up support@sportsethos.com, or you can tweet at Andre Lemouche. It's ANDMLEMOS on Twitter. And get a spot in one of these leagues. They're super competitive. They're super fun. They're actually kind of easy because of the way that the setup is over at ESPN, where they're hosting the leagues. But we're getting all of our folks here at Sports Ethos together because you guys like to play in competitive leagues. You guys like to have fun. So hit up either the support channels or Andre directly. He will be ushering people into the appropriate seats as those drafts are going to take off in a couple weeks now. All right. Eastern Conference playoffs. We talked about this yesterday with Rick. We talked about the West. These playoffs are stupid good. I don't know where they rank. I feel like there's every 3 or 4 years, there's this like, oh my God, these playoffs are the best we've ever seen moment. This is definitely one of those years. The Western Conference, or probably the Eastern Conference playoffs, they've got the New York-Detroit series. So let's start there. Wow. Foul or not? I guess I'll just ask you, foul or not?
Oh, it's absolutely a foul, and I can't believe they didn't call it.
Yeah, it was amazing. Even
why do we have replay? The fact that they didn't call the foul, it was Tim Hardaway that was shooting, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The fact they didn't call a foul against, on that shot, and the fact that later on that afternoon, the Lakers, they called LeBron for a reach in
using Zapruder film technology,
using a satellite that's up there by the moon. I just could not believe they didn't make that call. And that is if I was Bickerstaff, I feel like that is straight up discrimination against a crappy team, a team that's been bad for the last 10 years or whatever. Because if that was LeBron shooting that shot, or if it was Ant-Man, or if it was Luka, or if it was even Tyrese Halliburton, if it was anybody not a Piston, that would have been looked at and called a foul right there on the court. It's a terrible
on their home floor.
Terrible miscall in their house. And if I was a Pistons fan today, I would be. I'm so mad at Adam Silver and the NBA in general, because it's not fair. It wasn't fair.
Yeah, it's an abomination, and
then they rub it in their face and come out an hour after the game and say, "Oops, we missed it."
I'd rather them do that than lie. But like the thing about the way the game has sort of turned off people, it's happening in football with what the definition of a catch is, but this overly legalistic approach that we take to all of the different things. Like basically, my read on it was Josh Hart jumps, and because he jumps sideways, the ref's already thinking, okay, this guy's trying to avoid contact. But the bottom line is that he jumped and he bit, and he didn't get out of the way. He didn't fly by. He jumped into his airspace, and Hardaway did the right thing, which was create the contact that was sitting there right there for him to create. And then the ref says, oh, well, you created that contact. So you got 2 levels of like thinking here. And then the third one's like, well, it's the end of the game. And we put the whistles away. So you got 3 levels of thinking that I'm sure the ref hit all 3 levels and then just decided to swallow that whistle, and probably immediately regretted it at that point. And just an awful look, because you have replay and you could have at some point reviewed that at some level. And then you don't. And it's at this point, it should be Detroit 2-2 heading back, but it's not. Boo.
Well, that's the thing, dude. If this was 2-2 going back to New York, completely different feel. Like people would be fired up about this game, and it would be a must-win game for the Knicks, right? But now it's like 3-1.
And this has been a great series. Like these 2 teams are just like haul it off and hitting each other with haymakers left and right, and not. Now it's basically over. The other thing I would like to do is shout out to all the Kenny Atkinson voters out there. You've got Detroit giving New York, a championship contender for a lot of people. You got Detroit giving them everything and then some. And you're going to go out there and vote Kenny Atkinson with his all-star team for getting a lot of wins. Real tough stuff, Kenny. Real tough stuff over there, as are my comments.
And Memphis was a disaster in the playoffs too. They were a disaster all season. Like that's a mess. Anyway.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting because we don't even really need to talk about. Well, actually, we talked about them yesterday. What am I thinking here? Let's get to the other series here. We've got. Let's see, where do we want to go? Let's talk Indiana and Milwaukee. I mean, we got a little bit of knowledge about this series. It's 3-1. It feels like it's kind of over. Dame Lillard, was it Achilles? Yeah, it was Achilles. He's out, and so this thing's over, right?
Yeah, it was over with or without Dame. Indiana's had the Bucks number all year. Indiana, they lost the one game, but they won pretty handily in the other three. It's 3-1. I think this is over. Shout out to Damian Lillard, man. I feel bad for him. That's a tough injury to come back from when you're a little older, and just the whole move to Milwaukee for him never seemed to be right. But yeah, I think the Pacers are going to close this out tomorrow night.
One of the great stewards of the league, Damian Lillard, and it's just tough to see it happen, and that's kind of how it goes. Is you get more susceptible to injury as the years go on, and for Dame, defense has always been an issue, and playing with Giannis isn't easy. That's the kind of bottom line. If you got Drew Holiday and you got Chris Middleton at his peak, playing with Giannis is easier because those guys are kind of perfect citizens in that regard. But when you need to actually, make something out of the 2-on-1s that you create offensively, it's not Giannis that's making his teammates better. Let's see here. So my question is not about this series, actually. I want to know, do you give Indy any credibility next round against the Cavs?
Yeah. I'm still convinced the Cavaliers are not as good as we think they are. Even though they're cruising through Miami, I don't know what happened on Monday night. We don't know that
because we're recording Tuesday.
We're recording on Monday.
We're recording on Monday. It's Tuesday.
So that game hadn't been played yet, but I'm assuming the Cavaliers. I'm gonna go. You think I'm going with the Heat plus 9.5. I'm hoping that Darius Garland doesn't play and the Heat can somehow win that game. But I'll be surprised, I think, if Cleveland doesn't wrap it up. Like you said yesterday, Miami feels like they're halfway to Cancun already. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, but I do feel like Indiana can play with those guys. And
can they play with Boston?
Nah, probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. I Cleveland or Indiana?
Indiana.
No, I think Boston will.
So in the playoff journal, which Wager Pass members get, and you can get at sportsethos.com, there was an opportunity. The Indy was up 2-0 on Milwaukee. I think that series is done from the get-go. And when they're 2-0, I'm like, this is definitely done. They were plus 6,600 to win it all. Now, obviously, they're not going to win it all. But I thought that was really interesting because if you start to get into, let's say, Indy gets past Cleveland or even makes it interesting with Cleveland, you're going to get a discount on other teams. You're going to be able to bet into other teams because you have such a great position on one of the teams that's still left. So I was able to pick that up. And what I've just been wondering the entire time watching them is, are they just really freaking good? Like Aaron Nesmith is out there just kind of doing really, really high level things, being very, very good. And he's maybe the 5th best player on the team or something. Miles Turner looks like he's got that sort of juice that a veteran who's been there and done that has. Tyrese Halliburton looks like he's got a little bit more juice in the cojones department. Nembhard has been just lights out since last season. Like, it just feels like they're good. And you kind of look across the way and you look at Boston, and I go, Boston to me might be the best team in the playoffs, but they do have some interesting players in Indiana who can kind of go heads up. Nembhard can go heads up. Nesmith can go heads up defensively. Miles Turner, if you're drawing up a player who could cover a Kristaps Porzingis with some level of effectiveness, he's kind of on the short list of players who could do it. So I just think it's interesting. I don't think they're going to win, but I think it's interesting. Other series.
You
Go
didn't
ahead.
even mention Pascal Siakam, but he's been playing.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a dud on Sunday, but those previous 3 games, he's been awesome. He's been playing well for the Pacers too. So I do feel like, and Carlisle is a good coach. I feel like the Pacers might be sleepers. I kind of like that. Talking about betting them, but I don't think they'll get through, Cleveland and Boston. But I don't think it's ridiculous to think that they might have a shot.
Let's quickly look at the other 2 series. I mean, we've kind of glazed over the Cleveland one, and then Boston's up 3-1, and heading back to Boston. Orlando, I like their game 3 outlook. I thought, Boston dinged up. Orlando wants to win one. They've got a good defense. They got a couple, they don't really have players to cover Paolo and or Franz Wagner. That's like the end of the list for Orlando. That's the end of the team. There's not much cooking after that, but it's a good defensive squad. And, you have to have a good defense against a team like Boston. But do you expect Orlando to pick up another game at all?
No.
One in Boston, perhaps?
No, this is over.
Yep. And
this is done. I'm surprised Orlando won a game. And I will say Paolo looks like a freaking monster. Paolo's going to be fun next year.
Yeah. Well, there's some things I don't like about what he does decision-making wise. Like, I feel like sometimes he'll just leave some cash on the table. He's got so many skills that he's like, hey, go to the one that's the most dominant and don't do the thing you just did. But that's classic early career stuff for a guy and Frank, that whole team is sort of screwed up. You've got no ability to break the paint at all. No quickness. You got Corey Joseph at point guard. It's tough to evaluate these guys right now. And those teams are likely to advance Boston and Cleveland. So let's get out of that discussion. Let's talk some betting angles and let's get out of here. So Tuesday's games, do you got any props? I don't do the props right now. I'm focused solely on sides. You could get those in the wager pass. As we record, I'm up 10-6. Doc, what you got on Tuesday?
Yeah, it's too early to look at props. It's hard to find props a full day in advance of the game. So I didn't do anything with that. The Clippers are a 1.5 point favorite at the Nuggets. That series is tied 2-2. And I mean, if I'm going to bet that, I'm thinking the Nuggets are going to win because it's at Denver. So I would probably go Nuggets plus 1.5 tomorrow if I do that. Bucks at Pacers, Indy minus 7.5. Yes, give me that, please. Pistons at Knicks. Knicks favored by 5.5. I feel like the no call against Tim Hardaway was a death punch for the Pistons. Give me the Knicks minus 5.5. And then the Celtics are favored by 11.5 at home against the Magic. I'm probably not going to mess with that because I don't know if they're going to win by 12, but I like Boston winning big. So if I'm going to bet that, I'm going Boston.
Yeah, these big numbers are hard to wrap your head around because it gets so random at the end. But and then they always land right on the number. But the Boston parties in closeout games can get blowout very quick. So I would lean Boston. I'm not going to take that game. I will probably just give away a few free plays here. I took the Knicks. What was the number that I got them at in the old wager pass? I'll have that here in about 2 seconds. I got them at 5.5. It looks like you can still get that. I for all the reasons you said. And I also think that New York is figuring out how to play Detroit. They're getting progressively better as this series goes. Now, the Jalen Brunson injury stuff could be concerning, but they'll probably just shoot him up with adrenaline and then he'll just go out there and play. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be too much of a bounce back factor there for Detroit. That's a tough one to bounce back from, just historically, anecdotally, tough to bounce back from. I got Indy at 7. Jumping early. There was actually a -5 hanging out there early on. I saw it and I was like, that's that can't be right. And then I got busy and I only got a -7, but it's at 8 right now. And I still like it. It's just as you get up to 8 and 9, things really get dicey, especially if Milwaukee, collectively their vets get together and they say, you know what, we're going to win one for, this iteration of our team. We're going to win one last game before we all go our separate ways, which is what I think is going on in Milwaukee. And that is bad for business. That's bad for on-court play. Most teams in that kind of a situation, they let go and they get blown out by 20, which is why the number has gone to where it's gone. I like it at 8. I'd tell you to play it at 8 for a lower bet. At 7, pardon me, at 7, I like it a lot. Not as much as the Golden State bet from Monday night, which you guys will have the hindsight of knowing if I won or not. I don't know that right now because we're recording on Monday. And then that Clippers Nuggets game is pretty crazy. Like, I'm so vexed by it. I want to take the Clippers. I don't think I could bet the Nuggets right now because I just don't know if they've got the juice, the gas in the tank. I feel like they're all playing hurt and they've just expended so much energy out there. While the Clippers have relative depth and they've got multiple guys that can kind of take the load. It's such a even series, and it's also been kind of all over the board. It's a tough one. I don't really.
Cam was predicting the James Harden disappearing act starting tonight at 10 o'clock. So
you don't want to get on Rick's bad side because he is going to pound you. Like, James Harden is dead to him. Dead to him. I think James Harden is less onerous, but he's pretty bad. I can see.
Well, we're going to find out. I mean, he's been fine all year. He's been good in the playoffs. If he chokes on Tuesday night or in one of the 2 games after that,
and that's the thing about betting against Denver. Yeah, that the betting against Denver is basically like betting against the greatness of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon and even like Christian Brown. Like, these guys are just freaking gamers, and they're gonna drag this team across the finish line some way, shape, or form. The Clippers are really, really good, and so is Ivica Zubac as far as a fit for Jokic. I don't have a read on it. Maybe I'll get a vision before the game and I'll make a play. But right now I'm wussing out on this one. So yeah, that's our Tuesday night betting action. And I don't know if you have anything else to add here, sir. But otherwise, I'm going to get us out of here.
Get us out of here. Shout out to Aaron Gordon and that incredible buzzer beater off the Jokic 3-point attempt / pass. That reminded me a little bit of NC State back in the day. I wish this was Clippers up 3-1 instead of the series being tied 2-2. But had Gordon not done what he did, it would have gone to overtime. We'll never know who was going to win.
I was aware were you moment, and these playoffs have been kind of that. I'm very exhausted watching every moment of every game. It's just been so damn intense and so great on so many different levels. That thing almost broke me. So hopefully we'll get more of that. It's been fun. And hey, if you guys want to support what we're doing around here as I get us out of here, send us some feedback. We're making a ton of investments in the platform right now, and I would love to get your feedback so we can put it onto our roadmap, whether that's stuff we're doing here on social, whether that's stuff on the website with the various tools. We're making a ton of tools investments, guys. I think you guys are going to really like what you can do in the middle of your season with a Sports Ethos Fantasy Pass. So definitely send us your feedback. We want to hear it, and we'll get into the roadmap and kind of take it from there. That's going to do it for us today, folks. This has been Fantasy NBA Today, presented by Bet Online. Shout out Andre for a great job producing as usual. And for all of you out there, be well.